that's not something that you learn in Psychology 101 or any other class I'm aware of in school. It's the school of hard knocks and the school of real life. And the question is, do you learn that at 14, 15, 16, 12, 18, or do you have to wait till you're 60 and suddenly that message occurs to you and you realize that well after you've lived a significant portion of your life?
Hello and welcome to the Max Out Peak Performance Podcast, episode number 2. Today we're talking about one of our specific overriding philosophies, and that is getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And as always, here are your hosts, myself, Sam Hesh.
And Tim Hesh.
So, kind of breaking down what this means. This is something that we've had on t-shirts and logos for years, and it's really one of the only things that stuck around that we continue to talk about every day or every week with our athletes. So can you kind of explain what this get comfortable being uncomfortable means?
Yeah, I think generally when it comes to training, you need to be comfortable getting to the point or working past the point where you are in physical discomfort. You may also be in mental discomfort. I think too often, and it's not just kids, it's not just young adults, it's everybody is looking for an easy way out. They're looking for immediate results. And unless you're willing to become uncomfortable, you have no way to become what you want to be or who you want to be. And specifically with regard to our training, you won't jump well, you won't be strong, you won't be quick, you won't be anything unless you are willing to physically take that effort and really take it to the next level, which means if you quit as soon as you become uncomfortable, you're not going to be very successful.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that specifically, or to clarify, we don't mean, hey, when it hurts, stop or don't stop. Like if it's something that you know is an actual problem, like if you feel a strain that you shouldn't feel, most people understand the difference between those two things, being tired or your muscles being tired versus, hey, it feels like my shoulder's about to snap or I'm about to pull a muscle or something. But yeah, I think that's kind of what we're talking about. A lot of people hit that point where you can go so long without really hitting exhaustion, but then being comfortable going past that point where you naturally kind of pull back from, because even the most hardcore people hit a point where they're not comfortable anymore. And I think that if you consciously think of that when you're uncomfortable, that will trigger you to be able to say, hey, yeah, I am exhausted right now, but now I can do a couple extra reps because there's always the rep after the last one that you can do. So unpacking this, I think it's important that everyone knows that this isn't just an exercise, that this is important. I think this is very important towards life in general. And we kind of try to explain that to our athletes, but if you could go into a little bit more detail on what we mean when we are saying that they should apply this to life in general.
Well, there's an illusion we have of security and control. And we do everything we can as human beings to control our circumstances, to control what happens to us. But the reality is all we can really control is our responses to it. And so we need to ultimately become very comfortable not knowing what is going to happen. We need to be very comfortable not knowing what an outcome is going to be. And we need to be very comfortable as well being able to work through some initial distress, some initial discomfort, in order to obtain and achieve goals. And whether that's the discomfort of studying for 3 hours for a test, or whether that is the discomfort of going on 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 or 20 interviews to get a job, or whether that's the discomfort of working out and training to have the abilities that you want to have or to be in the shape you want to be in. It's all part of the same thing. And, we like to say always, if it was easy, everybody would be a world-class athlete, they'd be a multimillionaire, and they'd be married to a supermodel. That's not the reality of the situation. And so I think it applies to everything we do, and I think it's really important to explain that to young athletes, because it's something that is directly in front of them. It's something they will confront immediately in a workout, but it's a much better principle or philosophy for life in general.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I've heard this said before. I forgot who said it, but everything or nearly everything we do as humans is either to give ourselves happiness or enjoyment or to stop future pain. So when you think about being comfortable, a lot of what we try to do as humans is to make life easier on ourselves, either now or later, whether you buy something so that your day-to-day life is easier, or you save money so that later you don't have to do as much. That kind of like investing. You spend your whole life 40 hours a week, or 40 years, 40 hours a week trying to save money so that eventually you don't have to work, but you're riding on the fact that that's going to turn out well for you. The stock market could go away. You could have a health problem. The end of days could come, and none of that matters anymore. So all this security, you try to set yourself up in life so that you are doing the right things, but sometimes there's nothing you can do and it's out of your control, whether you have a bad boss or a bad coach or something happens where it's out of your control. I think focusing early on, when you can, on being agile and how you think and how you can adapt to different situations is really important. And like most things, if you try to do it when it's actually important, it's too late. So try to focus on that in something little like a workout, and then be able to apply it later in life to things that are much more important. So kind of going off of that, so we talked about how that applies to life in general, being comfortable or getting comfortable being uncomfortable. How do we apply that in our workouts? Because I think some people might just think, oh, well, your workouts are just harder. Is that the case? Or, how do we tie that in?
Well, I think it's almost immediate in all of our workouts. We get loose, we get everybody stretched out, and then we begin testing not only their physical but their mental capabilities and what those limits are. Now, everybody's different, so a given workout may be incredibly difficult for one individual, but actually not too bad for another. But what we encourage every athlete to do is go as hard as they can, as long as they can, and to get that extra rep after what should be the last rep. And if you continually do that, and you do that day after day, training session after training session, it becomes not only a way of life that you're always looking to be better and you're always looking to push that envelope, but you understand that that discomfort is not a bad thing. It's just a way to get farther down the road and to be better at what you're trying to do. And whether that's being a violinist, or whether that's being a surgeon or an engineer or a better athlete, it doesn't really matter, because it applies to everything in life. And that's true even in your personal relationships. It'll make you a better parent, it'll make you a better spouse, it'll make you a better employee, a better boss. Whatever you do, it will make you better.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that we do this too is we try to introduce things that are outside the box. So if we're going from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, and we do the same workout every time, people generally understand what's going to happen. It's very easy to get comfortable. That's why, we don't love programs that just bench, squat, and do some kind of clean or something like that every time, because it's too easy just to get in a rhythm and add 5 pounds, take 5 pounds off every time. We want every workout to be dynamic and for people to be wondering what's going to happen. So whether that's hey, it's 100 degrees outside, we're in air conditioning, but we pull the athletes outside to do some kind of conditioning, or whether it's 0 degrees outside. We did some of this today. It's -20 here in West Michigan, and we were doing climate training outside where we were doing burpees and push-ups in the snow. As long as you're being safe with what you're doing, I think throwing them off a little bit definitely helps. And another way we do this, probably uh, in a circumstance that happens more often, is we go with our athletes through a circuit. So we'll do 3 different exercises, and we'll go 10 reps for each of them for each exercise. Then we'll go down to 9, then 8, and then we'll go all the way down to 1. So this maybe takes 5 to 10 minutes, and then they're pretty exhausted at this point. But then instead of saying, "Hey, great job, we're done," we'll go back up to 5, because most people naturally think, oh, okay, we're down to 1, it's over. We'll go back up to 5 or 10 to get them outside their own minds, so that they don't think, hey, I couldn't have done another set. They can see, hey, I thought that it was over. I thought that I was going to be finished, but now I realize that I can go an extra 100% past what I thought was exhausting. So I think that that's a big part of what we do also.
Well, I think that's absolutely true, and I think it's been shown scientifically that the body can go a lot longer than the mind often lets the body go. And again, we're not being dangerous, we're not doing stupid things, but rather asking people to push past their own self-imposed limits, which they may think actually apply, but in reality don't apply at all.
Yeah, and you know, I think as we've gone on doing this over the last 10 years, we've realized a lot of people have access to the exercises that are beneficial to them, but people still don't get results. So why is that? That's because people don't often push themselves past when they are comfortable. A lot of people are comfortable sitting on the couch, so they don't really want to get up and work out every day. But we find that if we can push people past when they would naturally want to stop and pull back, that is a good part of our job, in addition to just timing and exercise and showing what exercises go with different goals of the athletes. But that's huge. I'd say that's at least half of our job, is to, especially after people know the exercises and the workouts, to get people to push past what they naturally are used to. So going on from there, that's how we apply it in the workouts. But why is this all beneficial to people? I know that we talked about it a little bit. Why does this benefit our athletes over the long term? Just kind of wrapping back around to that.
Well, I think it's easy to simply say, well, you're making better athletes, as we often talk about with those athletes and with their parents. If you think this is all about becoming a better athlete, you've completely missed the point. It's about what you do when you have to do what you don't want to do. You have to study for a test you don't want to, in a class you don't like. You have to go to a job you don't like with a boss who doesn't like you. All of those things which life regularly throws at us. And if you understand that you can not only survive those but succeed in those instances, you've made distinctions that can carry you through the rest of your life. And as we often talk about as well, if you accept what we say and what we advise in terms of these distinctions, you can make your life better immediately. It is not a question of, well, let's live life trial by error, because if we did that, nobody'd be anywhere. But if you believe what we say, and if you understand and apply that to your life, you can immediately make your life better. And if you do that day after day, session after session, year after year, you can be much more successful than you ever thought.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is partially because we're naturally competitive people, the two of us, but it seems to me that after you start thinking about like different hardships that come on or different annoyances that most people would be really annoyed about or pissed about, if you take them as, hey, I can show how much I can actually go through, and then I can use this at a later point, whether it's debt or how difficult you have to study for an exam or something like that. After you can get through it and kind of treat it as a competition, like knowing that other people couldn't do it, but you did and you crushed it, I look back on that, and that's what's pushed me a lot in school. Being able to look back and say, yeah, I did that better than pretty much anyone could. Um, and it's kind of a point of pride, the stuff that you go through, because no one ever talks about the easy parts of their life and how they overcame, um, you know, something great that happened to them. So I think being able to use that as a point of emphasis to look back on, and then when new hardships come up, you can think, well, if I could get past that, obviously I can do this. This is just annoying for the day. I think that definitely helps people.
Well, I agree. And if you look at things, especially problems, as simply inconveniences or challenges to be overcome, it makes life much better and much richer. And really, all of life is a competition at the end. And you may be competing with your neighbor, your siblings, your colleagues, your coworkers, but mostly you're competing with yourself. And, we talk about that all the time. And can you drown out that little voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, or you're too small, too slow, too young, too old, all of those things. And if you can't do that, you won't be nearly as successful. You won't enjoy the kinds of relationships you want. You won't enjoy great job satisfaction. You won't make as much money. You won't have relationships that are nearly as rich, whether it's with a spouse or your kids or other family members. And so it just can't be stressed enough. And that's not something that you learn in Psychology 101 or any other class I'm aware of in school. It's the school of hard knocks and the school of real life. And the question is, do you learn that at 14, 15, 16, 12, 18, or do you have to wait till you're 60 and suddenly that message occurs to you and you realize that well after you've lived a significant portion of your life?
Yeah. So I think we've made our case that it's very important to be able to go through this and be comfortable being uncomfortable. But do you think this is something that's naturally inherent in the competitive people that are resilient, or is this something that people can work on? Because I think that's really a key point.
Well, based on the athletes that we've trained, I have no doubt that it is a learned skill. You can become more and more resilient. You can become better and better at dealing with difficulty. And if the athletic side of things, whether it's truly a sport or whether it's an activity or whatever it is, if that is a microcosm of life, if it is the best example in a person's life as to what the rest of their life is going to be like, you can find it in sports and in training, and then you can apply it. And we've had parents over the last decade that we've done this tell us that. We've had athletes that have told us that. So I don't doubt at all that it is a learned skill. People have to be smart enough to understand the concept, and they have to be smart enough to understand the wisdom of the concept. But there are a lot of people that I'm not sure when we start training can really get this, but they've proven me wrong and they've understood it and they've become great at what they do. And again, that translates into every area of their lives, not just athletically, because most athletes, certainly after 18 and almost for sure after 22, are playing sports for leisure and activity rather than competitively. But there's no doubt that it translates, and it is a learned skill, and it is a skill that can continue to be honed and improved just in the context of what they do athletically.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that I had this happen to me too. I think that most people, either if they come from a pretty great life, good life, don't have too many hardships, they're either soft and are used to kind of getting what they want, at least starting out, I should say. And this is a little bit a stereotype, I think, or this in a nutshell. Or if they come from a family that's not so great, usually they have some attitude and don't really want to put up with authority. So either way, there's some friction at first. But then once people realize that it's for the best, what they're doing, and they've put in some time, and then maybe they see another hardship like in their actual sport, that, hey, I don't get the playing time I want, so I either quit and waste everything that I've worked on so far, or I work harder. I think that there's usually a switch that flips that turns them from someone that's there just to see how much they can get out for not much effort to seeing the switch flip and they're trying to get out every single drop that they can out of this working out. And I think sometimes it takes someone to push them because most people don't naturally say, hey, how can I work harder today than yesterday by myself when there's no one there. But I think what we've talked about too is, there's a difference between a bad athlete that we coach, a good athlete, and a great athlete. The bad athlete will do what we're saying, but won't go through the line. They won't give the extra rep through the end of the exercise. They'll do what they have to be able to get away with not getting talked to. The good athlete will do everything we say without question, and will do every set till the end. And then the great athlete is the one that is looking consciously at ways to make things more difficult. And maybe instead of, us doing a 30-second set of something, they'll go an extra second or two afterwards, or they'll put on more weight than we suggest, or they think of some different variation of making an exercise harder just to say, hey, yeah, I did it. So we've talked about it before. If we're doing 100 reps of something, the great athletes are the ones that do the rep after the last one. They go to 101 and say, screw it, I'm not going to stop at 100 just because you said that. I'm going to throw in an extra rep because I'm better than what you think I am. And I think that translates in other parts of life too. You can be a bad employee and not do what your boss wants you to do. You can be a good employee and do everything that your boss wants you to do. But then to get raises and to get promotions and to get recognition, those are the people that, make more calls than they're supposed to, think outside the box and find better ways of doing things. But those are the people that really excel in life, not the people that do exactly what they're told to do, but the people that do more than that.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And as somebody who hires people on a regular basis and has people working with them and for them, I'm very interested in the ones that go beyond what I ask them to do and think outside the box. And I think most bosses and most owners of businesses would want that as well. I absolutely agree that you have those categories of people. And typically, the people that tend to try to find the least number of reps or the least amount of work to not get yelled at are the same people that are going to have very mediocre relationships. They're going to be very mediocre in school, trying to do as little as possible to get whatever grade they want, and they will consistently underachieve for the amount of ability they have. But if that's what makes them happy, then so be it. We're not really looking for somebody like that. We're looking for people that want to be as good as they can be.
I mean, it all comes back to what makes you happy in the long run. But then you're also trying to kind of hedge for the future and be able to deal with hardships that come up. So yeah, you can be happy every day, but if you never try to strive for anything greater or to be any better as a person, it might become difficult to stay happy one day when whoever you have is taken away.
Well, and there's nothing more tragic than realizing that you haven't done what you could have done with a part of your life that you'll never get back. There are no mulligans in life. There are no do-overs. And what is the present now is the past in a few seconds, and you never get a chance to do it over. So if you understand that early in your life, you can have a much better life. If you don't, you'll look back on your life and say, if only, wow, I wish I could do that again. Wow, I really blew that. And, we don't wish that for anybody.
Yeah. So it's great that we've broken this down, why this is important, how it affects us in our daily lives. Is it inherent or is there a way to work on it? But what are the action steps going forward for someone that's listening to this? How can they become better at this if they don't have a coach? I mean, obviously it's easier if they were to sign up with someone that will push them. Was there anything that they can do themselves if they don't have someone like that?
Well, we encourage people all the time to do things that makes them uncomfortable. And again, not doing something dangerous, not doing something stupid. But
if you know you need to study more, but you really don't want to do it, well, force yourself to sit down and study for 5 minutes longer than you think you have to. If it's training, then compel yourself. Absolutely don't let yourself do anything else until you do a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes of some sort of exercise. And you can immediately see gains if you consistently don't settle for what's comfortable and what's typical. So before you plop on the couch to watch Netflix for 2.5 or 3 hours, before you eat that tub of ice cream, whatever it is, do something that counteracts that.
Yep.
And do something healthy, do something worthy. And if you do that on a regular basis and you do it often enough, we think, and again, based on the successes we've had with a lot of athletes who also happen to be really great people and really great students, it starts to translate into areas of their lives they never believed it would or thought it could.
Yeah. I think that one important thing with this is to make sure that you never waste motivation. I heard someone say that before, and that kind of struck a chord with me. We have it all the time where we are motivated to do something, but we're like, I'll wait a couple minutes, and then we don't do it. Whether it's, hey, I'm motivated to go write for a post or send a text message to someone that I love saying happy birthday, or go and do 10 push-ups. The worst thing in life is wasted motivation. And then sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything, but mentally you should do something. So there are steps that you can take, at least steps that we take all the time when we don't feel like doing something, that help us then feel like it. So if you're feeling sluggish, maybe you don't have to start exercising right away, but maybe get off the couch and take a short walk around your house or outside, or that you're not feeling energized, so maybe have a cup of coffee or get some kind of caffeine in you that will make you feel that way. Listen to music, even if you don't necessarily want to, that will get you hyped up. And after that happens, and you start to get to be able to exercise regularly or do whatever you don't feel like doing, I think there becomes a point where you're exercising and you get to the end of a set, and I think we've both had this where we know that we're done. We have done the reps that we want to do. There's no one else around. But then you get to a point where you start getting okay with doing more after that. So you'll just say, I was going to do, 10 burpees or 20 push-ups, but I'm going to do an extra 5 just for the heck of it. It doesn't matter over the long run. Like, these 5 push-ups won't do anything for me, probably in the long run. And I'm not going to talk to anyone about this workout. There's no reason necessarily for me to do this, but you get to the point where you just start doing extra things like that all the time. And if you do an extra 5 in any specific workout, any 5 reps, that doesn't matter over the, if you just do those 5, but every time you work out or you study or you save money and you save a little bit extra and a little bit extra, you get to that point of exponential returns where you start making large gains because now you've done 5% more than everyone else every day. And you get to that point where you just have so much more because you put in the extra effort. And mentally, I think even mentally, it's more important than the actual results of what you have, because you know that you can go 5% longer or 5% harder than anyone else that's out there doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think one thing that's really important, and we talk about it all the time with our athletes, we don't care if they're interested in doing what they're doing. If they're there, we want them to be as good as they can be. We say, we don't care if you want to do it. You're going to do it, and you're going to do it as well as you can. Now, if they need that external motivator that is one of us or both of us coaching them up and yelling to them, not yelling at them, so be it. But when you're alone and you don't have anybody else, it's like you say, what can you do to just change that? I remember Tony Robbins making it very clear that motion creates emotion. So get up off the couch, take a walk around the room, around the house, sit down and force yourself to study. Do something not because you want to, but because it's the right thing to do. And that process then becomes easier and easier to do. And like you say, it builds over time. And on a given day or in a given workout or in a given study period, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But consistent hard work, as we know, creates amazing results. And that is true whether you're talking about athletics or whether you're talking about studying or a skill like playing an instrument, anything in life, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. So I would agree with that too. I think novelty is sometimes a big part of it. Even if if it's something that gets you to do what you don't want to do, it's probably worth it. So I remember I was studying for exams a couple of years ago, and I didn't feel like exercising, and I didn't feel like studying. So I decided, well, I don't really like the treadmill, but maybe I'll go down there and I'll walk while I study and read through this long packet. And I was walking for over an hour, just reading through this packet. And it made the time go a lot faster because I thought, oh, this is interesting. Throughout the whole process, I was thinking, oh, does this actually help me? Is this more beneficial to exercise while reading? Does it help store the information better? Because I'd read about that too. And it's, anything that you can do that creates the ability to do more work, whether it's stupid or not, if it's something that gets you to do it, whether it's, a blizzard outside and you say, hey, that would be interesting just to be able to say, I walked in a blizzard, as long as it's safe again. I think that that's a good idea, even if it's not something that's going to be repeatable.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right on.
Yeah. So, this is kind of what we're talking about. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Just know that going forward, you'll never regret doing more work than the other people around you. You're never going to look back and say, hey, I wish I watched TV more. You're going to look back and say, hey, I wish I was more prepared for whatever the hardship that I'm facing now is. So just get comfortable being uncomfortable. Do more than you want. Do more than other people expect of you, and you'll be in a really good situation going forward.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So if you like this, please like, comment, or subscribe. It helps us out knowing that people like this and that people want to hear more of it. And then any suggestions that you have for future videos, we have a good number of ideas, and I think that we really enjoyed these last two videos. So we expect to do more, but just let us know in the comments below. Thanks and have a great night.
So long.